In this video, we'll show you how to replace the steering knuckle on your Subaru Crosstrek. This is part of your steering and suspension system located in the front of the vehicle behind your wheel. Let's get started. Now we're going to use a 19mm socket to remove the wheels. Make sure you put the lug nuts somewhere that you're not going to lose them and you're not going to kick them around the space. Now, remove the wheel. We'll remove our axle nut with a 32mm socket. You can also use a 1 1/4. You want to make sure that the axle is freed up. We're going to use a punch and a hammer, but be very careful not to mushroom the end. You want to be able to get the axle nut back on. We'll remove the caliper with a 17mm. We'll support our caliper using either an elastic cord or a hook. Remove your rotor. We're going to spray some penetrant on the back side of these fasteners, holding the hub to the knuckle. Before removing the hub, it's good to remove the ABS wheel speed sensor. That way you don't damage it. Remove this using a 10mm. We can use a flathead screwdriver, but be very careful not to damage the ABS wheel speed sensor. We'll remove the strut bolts using a 19mm socket and wrench. The upper bolt is an eccentric. Make sure this goes back in the same way. The upper bolt also has a washer. Make sure that goes back on as well. We want to be careful not to damage the axle while we remove it from the hub. We'll remove the 14mm bolts holding the hub to the knuckle. We can reinstall the knuckle into the strut temporarily to hold it while we remove the hub. We'll just start our lower strut mounting nuts on. No need to tighten these all the way down for now. We're going to install our bolts back into the hub, just a few threads. Now we're going to hit on the back side of the bolts. You can use a hammer. I'll be using an air hammer. We can fully remove our 14mm hub bolts. And we can remove our hub. We'll remove the tie rod nut with a 19mm. To remove the tie rod from the knuckle, strike the knuckle just on the end, being cautious not to damage the tie rod. We'll remove the pinch bolt for the ball joint. On our application, it's a 16mm. We'll remove the bolts holding the strut in. And we'll remove our knuckle. Before installing our new knuckle, we're going to put some anti-seize on the ball joint where it installs into the knuckle. We'll apply some anti-seize to the axle where it installs into the hub. Try not to get any on the threads. We're going to temporarily install the knuckle up to the strut. We'll install our bolts. This is just going to hold the knuckle up while we install the hub. If you're going to reuse your hub wheel bearing, make sure you clean up the area where it's going to mount into the knuckle. Apply anti-seize to the area of the hub where it will mount into the knuckle. Install 2 of your hub bolts. This will help you align the hub as you go on. We'll install our other 2 bolts. And we'll snug those up. And we'll torque the hub bolts to 48 foot-pounds. We'll remove our strut bolts. can install our axle into the hub. Be careful not to damage the threads of the axle. Get the axle started. You also want to be careful not to damage the boot of the axle. We can reinstall our strut bolts. Make sure that the orientation is the same as when you remove these. Now we can snug down our strut bolts. We'll reinstall our ball joint pinch bolt. And we'll torque the pinch bolt to 37 foot-pounds. We'll reinstall our tie rod. And reinstall the tie rod nut. Snug that down. And we'll torque that to 20 foot-pounds. Before we reinstall the ABS sensor, we want to put a little bit of anti-seize on each tab. Put a little bit on the underside, but try not to get any on the sensor itself. Now we can reinstall our sensor and reinstall our ABS wheel sensor bolt. If you have a small enough torque wrench, this gets 4.7 foot-pounds. If not, just tighten it to the best of your ability. We'll torque the strut bolts to 114 foot-pounds. We're going to apply a small amount of anti-seize to the hub. Try not to get any on the studs. We can install our rotor. You can use some washers, a bearing, or a large nut, and then one of the lug nuts to hold the rotor in place while we install our caliper. Now we can reinstall our caliper. Make sure that when you bring the caliper back to the rotor, you don't twist the brake hose. If the caliper doesn't slide back on, you may need to compress the pistons of the caliper. We can snug those down. And we can torque our caliper bracket bolts to 59 foot-pounds. Don't forget to remove the elastic cord or the hook you use to support your caliper. Make sure you remove the lug nut and the washers or nut or bearing that you use to hold the rotor on. Reinstall your axle nut. And we'll snug that down. Now we'll torque the axle nut. If you don't have someone to hold the brake pedal for you, you can use a pry bar on the wheel studs. Just be careful not to damage them. We're going to torque this to 162 foot-pounds. We're going to lock the axle nut in place using a chisel and a hammer. This will prevent the nut from spinning off. Support the bottom of the wheel so that it's flat on the hub. If you thread the first lug in most of the way, it'll hold the wheel on for you. Snug them down, but not too tight, because you want to be able to torque them and have them move when you do so. And now we're going to torque the lugs down to 89 foot-pounds. Make sure you're going in a star pattern to bring everything down evenly. Once you've completed this job, take your vehicle down to your local service station for an alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.